Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellow Cat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Got any incompetent coworker stories? I have a few. We had to mail out a large amount of letters, so we were pulling the labels with the client's addresses on the envelopes. I call my coworker to come help and I hand her some labels and some envelopes. About 15 minutes later, she shows me the pile that she had done. One problem. She thought I wanted her to cover our return address with a mail to address. She thought 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. was 5 hours. This one made me stop thinking of her as a bad worker and start thinking of her as just dumb. I was working late one day and dumb coworker and another coworker who worked later than me were both there. Dumb coworker was a few feet from me and the other coworker didn't know I was working late that day. So she comes out of the break room and says, "Oh, team captain, you're still here?" I jokingly say, "No, I left." Honest to God, dumb coworker jumps out of her seat and says, "He's lying, he's still here." Yeah. I was working IT in a hospital a couple years back. This is a true story of what happened there. I went to one of the offices because we had gotten a call about a computer not turning on. We would get them all the time, so this wasn't unusual. 95% of those calls were user error, to put it nicely, so I was already expecting bad. But not this bad. I get there, and she is correct, the computer will not turn on at all. I first check the plug. It's in the wall, looks fine in the back of the computer. So I ask, "What were you doing at the time this computer stopped working?" To which she responded with, "Well, I was using the water cooling feature because I thought it was too hot." Now, as a little bit of exposition, this model of computer had a fan port on the top of the machine that somewhat resembled a funnel. When she said water cooled, she pointed to this fan port. None of the computers here are even water-cooled. When I walked back to my desk with the now sloshing computer, my fellows in the IT department were perplexed why I pulled the machine without approval, until I poured out the water into a trash can. Jessica. I worked at a sign shop, it's part of a national chain, as a graphic artist and sign designer. We hired a new sales girl named Jessica. While I had high hopes for her, I eventually discovered she had the IQ of a drunken gnat. What follows are transcripts of actual conversations with Jess, as well as excerpts from her sign orders. And don't be fooled, she wasn't putting on an act or trying to make jokes that failed miserably. She really was that stupid. "Jess, I don't think the manager was happy about all the trash you threw on the floor." "That wasn't my fault." "How so?" "The trash can was too small." "So, rather than putting the trash in the larger can 4 feet away, you threw the trash on the floor anyway?" "Yes." "Then that would be your fault." "Shut up!" McDonald's excess, from a work order that should have read McDonald's access. One afternoon, Jess stuck her head in my office. "Hey, do we have green polyester? How big a piece do you need?" 5 inches by 8 feet, 4 of them. "No, we only have smaller scrap pieces. You'll have to order a piece from the distributor. Oh, and order it pre-cut. Our wall cutter won't cut that size." When the strips arrived at the store, she complained that the supplier cut the strips wrong. They were supposed to be 5 inches by 8 inches, not feet. I reminded her that she asked me for 5 inches by 8 foot lengths, which she adamantly denied. However, a glance at the order confirmation sheet the supplier faxed her moments after taking her order proved her wrong. I took one of the strips and cut off 4 8-inch lengths. I then handed her the newly cut pieces and she asked, "What's this? The material for the signs you ordered? You cut them wrong." "No, I assure you those are cut to 8-inch lengths. Measure them if you don't believe me." She measured the piece, confirming that, yes, it is indeed cut to 5 inches by 8 inches. She then walks out to the showroom and measures a sign on the wall. She walks back giggling. "Oops, they're supposed to be 5 inches by 18 inches. Jess, didn't it occur to you that a sign 5 inches by 8 inches is only 3 inches longer than it is tall? Shut up! Private residence, from a work order that should have read private residence. That customer sounds like a pretty nice guy. He's wealthy and I think he has a crush on me. Why don't you ask him out on a date then? I'd never do that. Why not? Because he's black. Don't you think that attitude is, well, racist? It isn't racist. And why not? I'm not a racist. I just refuse to date black men. Jess, we call that racism. Shut up! Vinyl border, from a work order that should have read vinyl border. I finally figured out why I cheat on my boyfriend. And why is that? It's genetic. My father cheated on my mother all the time. Why doesn't my boyfriend understand that? When I move out on my boyfriend, I'm not going to ask him for child support. Why on earth not? I'm not going to depend on any man. Why are you still with him then? Because I can't support my son and I by myself? So, in other words, you depend on him. Shut up! Visitoring parking, from a work order that should have read visitor parking. If the district manager fires our manager, I hope they don't hire a man. Why not? I feel more comfortable working under a woman. Well, that's a pretty sexist attitude. It isn't sexist. And why not? I'm not sexist. I'm just more comfortable working with women instead of men. Jess, we call that sexism. Shut up! Smiley. Note, Jess wrote to herself reminding her to smile. I eventually broke down and told her she had misspelled smile. She replied that she wasn't writing the word smile, but rather smiley, as in smiley face. When I mentioned that it was still misspelled, she replied, "You guessed it. Shut up! What's that huge sore on your lip?" Herpes. Just kidding. You're not kidding, are you? Okay, it is herpes. Don't worry, it's not contagious. Yes, it is, Jess. Herpes is contagious. No, it isn't, unless I kiss you while I have an outbreak. Jess, here on planet Earth, we call that contagious. Shut up! 500. Answer Jess gave to the question, what is 15% of 50? Why can't I find a good man to date? Gee, Jess, it could be because you live with your boyfriend and have a screaming case of herpes. Most of us guys don't like that. Shut up! Sing, from a work order that should have read sign. Remember, she works in a sign shop. And that wasn't typed either. Excite, from a work order that should have read exit. My current boss is a moron. I'm really not sure how he made it to the director level. My company typically makes very good hiring decisions. He asked me to prepare a presentation for the whole company to roll out a newly instituted policy. 3 days later, I delivered the presentation to him and he had forgotten about it. He replied to me and CC'd his boss because he's that dumb, saying, "I don't know who gave you the authority to write your own policies, but nothing leads me to believe that we would embrace this type of policy anytime in the near future. Please consult with me prior to wasting any resources on these types of projects." His boss replied to both of us and said, "Is this some sort of inside joke between you two? Good job, Oika, we will roll this out immediately." Also, he doesn't use there, and there. In his words, there is only one spelling. There. There are really too many stupid things to mention here. One of the professors supported by my office needed to purchase a download of Photoshop from the Adobe website. So I went to our receptionist, a woman in her 60s who has difficulty with newfangled computers. I don't ever mind helping her since it's my job, but she couples it up with getting very defensive. She resents her own misunderstanding and takes it out on me when we try to fix a problem. Anyway, she's the only one in the office who has a university credit card, which we needed for purchasing a Photoshop license. So the conversation went as follows, more or less word for word. Me. John needs a license to download Photoshop. Could you please go to Adobe's website and I'll show you exactly what he needs? Her. I spoke with John, he doesn't want Adobe, he wants Photoshop. Me. Right. Adobe Photoshop. Her. Yes, not Adobe, Photoshop. He needs Photoshop. Me. Right. Could you please go to adobe.com and I'll show you? Her. He doesn't need Adobe, he needs Photoshop. My imitation of Fry's not sure if face. Me. Adobe is the name of the company. Photoshop is a particular product they make. I think you're thinking of Reader, which is her. Look, John told me and I'm telling you, he needs Photoshop. Me. Here, I'll show you what I mean. Can I please use your computer? Her. No, you need to teach me, not show me. Me. All right. Go to adobe.com. Her. But he doesn't need Adobe, he needs Photoshop. I swear, I thought I was being punked. This went on for about 5 minutes before I gave up, went to my desk, went to Adobe's site and the license purchasing page and emailed it to her. I was supposed to train a new junior at my firm. He showed up at 11:30 a.m., workday starts at 8 on his first day. When he sat down, I asked him what was up. He said, "Am I late?" And I said, "Everyone gets in at 8 o'clock. "Oh, I'm so sorry, but I won't be able to come in earlier than 10. WTF? No reason was given. Sadly, I do not have the authority to fire someone, and my boss was out for the day, so I stuck with him. At lunch, he arrives back half an hour late. At 3, he starts packing his bag. I ask where he's going. He said home. I told him that he had to work the full 8 hours. He refused and left. He said no one still works an 8-hour day. I promptly left my boss a voicemail, and when new guy strolled in the next day at 10:30, the boss fired him on the spot. Apparently, this 22-year-old guy has never worked a day in his life. It was shocking. He thought that working less than 3 hours was appropriate. I had a couple coworkers who may have been the dumbest people I'd ever met. The first constantly came to work obviously high, and even when he wasn't, he would say the most ridiculous things, e.g., "Our manager is a racist. She yelled at me when I came in late. The people in Iraq started fighting with us because they don't have any water." And my personal favorite, "What do you think a piece of chocolate would taste like if you left it in a coffin?" He would talk about getting drunk or high in front of customers. He lasted a lot longer than I expected, but eventually got fired for coming in late or just not showing up. The other guy was also incredibly dumb and said similarly ridiculous things. For example, while he was putting on a band-aid, he told me that he had an advanced healing factor because he had different DNA. He was being totally serious. One night, he asks me for a ride because we got out at the same time, and I said sure because he lived along the way. After we got out, we sat in my car while I smoked a cigarette because I was going to be getting gas right across the street. After I finished, I started the car up and drove to the gas station. I didn't have my card on me, so I had to pay cash. When I went to start pumping, he rolled down the window to shoot the S while I did, no big deal. As we're talking and I'm pumping, he lights up a cigarette at a gas station while he is less than 6 feet from someone pumping gas. We had this guy in the IT department who was a total train wreck. He was this Russian Guido type who probably did too much cocaine. He would brag constantly about his exploits at the Jersey Shore. Guy comes into work all the time hungover, always wore sleeveless shirts and would fight with his coworkers all the time over small things. His boss claims it was hard to fire him because he has some kind of medical condition and it became a tough issue for HR. Also, one day he realized all the Jewish people in the office had more days off, so started taking every Jewish holiday off. One time, he told everyone he had to leave early because it was a holiday and he had to go to the temple early to pray. His dad, who happens to work there, called him out on his BS and said, "We're not practicing Jews," in front of everyone. One day, he comes in looking hungover, tells everyone he's not feeling well and he's going home. He decides to call one of his friends. FYI, he's a loud talker on the phone. He tells his friend, "Yeah bro, I'm gonna go home and take a nap and we're gonna party hard tonight. Yeah, I told my boss I wasn't feeling well." Loud enough for everyone around him to hear, including his boss, the CTO, and the CEO, who happened to walk by to overhear. Fired right on the spot. He threatened to sue, but I don't think anything came of it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and the comments. See you in the next video.